All right, we are ready to get started. By way of introduction, my name is Paul Blanchard. I'm the president of the Habit Finder and the Mandino Leadership Institute. This is my dad, my business partner, one of my best friends who I get to work with and have been working super closely with for the last 5 years already. Now, you flash back 20 years before, 15 years before that, 20 years in total, and I got to be there, kind of a front row seat as his son to taking on the mantle of Mandino and being able to create a global coaching and training company. And I cut my teeth on these principles and what was built here, and then went off and did my own thing as an entrepreneur. And then it came full circle as an opportunity to be a partner here with my dad. I want to tell you a little bit about my dad really quick. So he's been in consulting, he's been in filmmaking, he's been a rock musician. I mean, talk about a Renaissance man. Okay, he would tell you it was a midlife crisis, but they were really good. His rock band in the 80s, they were really good. So, but been all over the place. There aren't really anything that my dad's done that he hasn't excelled at. And when he got the opportunity to carry the mantle of Mandino for, and that wasn't without struggle. That wasn't because things were handed to him. In fact, many of the things that he took on and became one of the top in the industry, and whether it was medical management consulting or real estate investing or any of those things, it wasn't without tremendous struggle that taught him deep, powerful lessons. So when the opportunity to take on the Mandino mantle arrived, that was kind of created through his filmmaking and writing a script for one of Og's books, and then being offered the film rights to The Greatest Salesman in the World. Fast forward, and we turn it into the Mandino Leadership Institute. When it came time to really create the foundation of the program, it was his ability to create what he had in so many different arenas, in insurance, in medical management, in real estate, in filmmaking, in philanthropy, bringing all those principles in his relationship, who I got to have a front row seat for my entire life watching exactly how a man should treat his wife. Just a master class in him and my mom's just storybook relationship. Not because they didn't go through really difficult things. You want to read Today I Begin a New Life, my dad's best-selling book about what he went through, is enormous. But getting an opportunity, when it came time to build the foundation of these principles, it was all that struggle. It was all those challenges that became married with the principles of the 10 Scrolls, that divinely, if I could be so bold, led to the University of Tennessee and an incredible mathematical set and proven formal science that allows us to measure people's thoughts in less than 15 minutes. And now, when given the opportunity 5 years ago to come and partner with him, it was the best decision I could have ever made, to be able to operate on this level. At the core of all of that, of what this company has been about the reason my dad wanted to turn the mantle of Mandino into the company that it is today, is to coach, to be able to coach people. That's why we're here. That's what we do. There's a lot of cool technological things you can do nowadays that you couldn't do 20 years ago or even 5 years ago. But at the end of the day, it's coaching. And to kick us off real quick, Dad, I didn't ask you to do this as we were talking earlier today, but do you mind just really quick, just in a couple of minutes, summarizing where the term coach came from?
Sure. Kevin Hall, dear friend who wrote the book Aspire, tells us that there was a city in Austria by the name of Koch, K-O-C, and they built carriages for the aristocracy. And coach literally carried someone. And you go to London right now or England, and you take a ride in a coach, which is basically a bus, right? So a coach is someone who takes something from where it is to where it wants to be. And you apply that to coach, C-O-A-C-H. We are helping someone get from where they are to where they like to be at the fastest possible pace, because most coaches have already stepped in the glue buckets and the potholes in the road and broken their ankles, and they're coming with experience as mentors, as guides on this hero journey to help someone get from where they are to where they want to be with the least amount of trauma. And might add, you and I both have coaches, because coaches have coaches for that very reason.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's really the core of our conversation tonight. That's the core of our company, is coaching, is helping people, help carry them through the principles, through the perspectives, through the pieces that will allow them to get, as we say quite often, get to where they're going as fast as possible, but not quicker than they should. Yeah. We want to get people to where they're going as fast as possible, but not quicker than they should. It's not about shortcuts. It's not always about speed. It's about principles. It's about thought processes, about things that will really last. And so in honor of that, and we'll talk a little bit more intimately about what we've done to be as successful as we have as a growing company for 20 years, regardless of the recession, regardless of other things, the principles that have really founded that. I wanted to give a couple of takeaways, a couple of discussion points, so that anyone in any type of mentorship position could take some value away from tonight's webinar. So I've got 3 areas that my dad and I are going to focus on for you and share some thoughts around. The first one is credentials are overrated and a brand is for you, not them. Okay, this was inspired as we've been talking about some of the coach traps that we see out there. People that want to become coach, want to become mentors, want to become consultants. And one of the traps that we see is getting caught up in the credential compensating for something, or branding, or online marketing. There is nothing wrong with any of those things. Credentials, fantastic. Branding, fantastic. Online marketing, great. They all have their place. But the majority of new coaches or struggling coaches or consultants seek them as if they're the holy grail. They're going to be the fountain of youth. They're going to give them new life. And they are supplemental to the core of coaching. So the first piece, a credential. A credential is an academic evaluation. It is some committee, some organization that said, we have the right to say whether this is official or not, and then have been around long enough or gotten enough followers that there's kind of a mass majority that goes, yeah, they are regulatory. They are important. And it can feel really good to accomplish something that's in that realm. But when you really get into the core of coaching and even consulting, credentials don't matter near as much as most people were expecting. And it can be really frustrating when you were hoping for a credential to do this much, and it really only did this much. Now, is this valuable? Sure, absolutely. Especially as a consultant, there are certain companies that won't work with you if you don't have an MBA or other things. But for most people that are drawn into the incredible world of coaching and mentoring, which is one of the fastest growing industries over the last 5+ years, growing faster than just about anything, which is why you want to be able to stand apart and why you want to be able to pay attention to those who have been doing this for a long time and been doing so successfully. But a credential cannot make up the distance in a very saturated business, because credentials are also very accessible. Anyone can get a credential. And that's where people have kind of fallen out of love of the romance of a credential, even though those that continue to pursue it feel like, oh, this is going to set me apart. There are far deeper, more intrinsic, powerful things that will set you apart as a coach than a credential. And then the last piece, and I'd love any thoughts you've got on this one as well, Dad. The last piece is branding. Branding is for you. That's its primary purpose. For you to wrap your mind around who you serve, what you help them do, and how you help them accomplish that. Again, who you serve, what you help them do, and how you help them accomplish that. A brand gives you an opportunity to achieve what is so important for any conversation, any marketing piece with a prospective client, and that is simplicity. Because most coaches know how to talk to people. And the coaches who don't feel like they know what to say usually say way too much. And so a brand can help you focus and concentrate that in. But again, similar to a credential, if you're thinking the brand, the logo, that's what's going to separate me, that's what's going to push me over the edge, it's not. There are far more deeper, more impactful things that are actually in this list we'll get to that are going to be really powerful for you to focus on. So should you do branding? Should you understand how to create a simple, laser-targeted expression of what you can do for someone? Absolutely. Should you go drop 10 grand and get a consultant thinking that that's going to make you millions of dollars because you've got an amazing logo, an incredible website, and great verbiage? No. That's what you want to avoid. That can be a coaching trap. Any additional thoughts on this space from what we've seen, Dad?
Absolutely. And thank you, Paul. I have to say something. We didn't rehearse this piece of when we were talking in preparation. When Paul left for Virginia, it was because Jack Welch, an iconic CEO from GE, called and said, "You're on my short list to be the director of admissions for my Jack Welch Management Institute Executive MBA program. And I still remember, Paul, when you got back there and you met with Jack, and you called me and said, I was the only one on the list. I remember that. And I remember when Paul sent me an email or text message. It was a text message. He says, you'll never believe where I am. And I said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Jack Welch's closet, getting a tour of the house. Well, Paul took that organization 40% year over year, and then called me in 2014 and said, I'm ready for a new challenge. I just don't know what to do. And I thought, I'm ready. And the qualifier was, am I coming to work for you or work with you? And those of you who've had an opportunity to spend any time with Paul, you know why I said work with me. Paul did cut his teeth on these principles, and he's an incredible leader, incredible speaker. I love to listen to him speak on stage, but I love more to hear how he coaches with clients. Paul and I have the privilege right now. We have 14 groups of 23 people each that we're doing together for a company to show that these principles do in fact move a needle, which they in fact are, moving a needle. So I get the privilege a couple of times a day to be in a session with Paul, co-coaching. So I can appreciate that. And I mention this for a couple of reasons. One, Paul's credibility, which is important. But more importantly, this. The most powerful thing a coach can do is create a result in a person's life. One client at a time. Paul, I think it'd be fair to say, when you first came to work with me, we didn't have an elaborate marketing campaign.
Didn't have one at all.
Everything we did, and we had pretty good coaching practice. Everything was referral because it was focused on creating a result in the life of a human being, and that person would always refer the next person to create a result in that human being and the next person. This is a coaching practice. Those of you who are here with us tonight, and thank you for being here. The question is, do you want to be rich and famous? This probably isn't your profession. Can you make a 7-figure income? Yeah, have for years. Know how that works. That's a great income, right? But it's not about that. It's about the fact that maybe 6 or 7 sessions a day, you're in love with being totally present with another human being, listening and bringing principles and having substance to bring and breathe into their life, to create the change that they're looking for, to inspire them, to breathe that life, to take on the next facet of their lives. So it's not credential. Does a credential help get a door open? Sometimes. But a door will open, it'll close just as fast if we're not delivering something that is of value to that person's life. And coaching isn't just going, okay, what do you want to talk about today? It's really diving into the real issues in a person's life and holding them accountable, being the fire under their feet, making things happen. It's the quality of the service provided that drives the success of the business. In a nutshell.
Thank you. Fantastic. Let's move into number 2. And we'll take some questions towards the end. So we want to make sure people get an opportunity to interact with anything specifically that would serve you all. Number 2 is focus on serving, not on scaling. This is another trap we see a lot of coaches fall into. In fact, a lot of our clients fall into this. As entrepreneurs and business leaders, the focus is to duplicate and to scale and to scale and to duplicate, to be able to duplicate yourself, to be able to scale, to get bigger results with less effort. And it can be so destructive when not understood properly, when not built on a solid foundation of service, a solid foundation of a team that is committed and intrinsically validated, which is an important piece of what we teach and foundational to what we teach, rather than compliant and rather than motivated, which is an external force. We want people that are inspired. And for ourselves, we can get caught up with scaling. And we had the same problem. I ran into it time and time again. When I came on 5 years ago, it was all about, and we'd talk about this every week. Dad, we'd be like, how do we scale? Okay, we could do that, but that doesn't scale. Okay, let's do this program. Let's change it this way so it can scale. And then I'll never forget, one day I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, and they were talking about a billionaire who had voluntarily mentored the creators of Airbnb. And he took them under his wing just to give them a little bit of counsel here and there. And as he was talking to them and helping them solve some problems, he said something that just just shook me. He said, do the things that don't scale so that you can. I've never forgotten that. So many people are trying to figure out how to scale without realizing they're doing it at the sacrifice of real service. Real service, really getting into someone's life, really making a difference, making a change. And when that clicked for Airbnb and they got into the lives of their people and really started challenging some of the things that they weren't doing because that couldn't scale. We can't do that forever, so we're not going to do that now. That's another key to coaching. Do the things that don't scale now so that when you do scale, you don't lose touch with the service, the connection, the real shift that you can create in people's lives. Because if you're trying to scale ahead of service, it's going to be like getting down to start a sprint, and when you take off, your shoes are tied together. I mean, we've experienced that a few times, Dad, over the years, where we're like, this is it. We're going to be able to scale this. It's going to be awesome. But it was for the sake of scaling. We hadn't earned the right to scale yet. Now, the groups we've got, we're making a little adjustments along the way as we really need to, but staying in touch with the real purpose, the real service. We made some great moves in scaling because it was always with the priority of being able to serve more and to serve better, not just to be able to scale for profit or scale for convenience. Huge piece to not get caught up in the illusion of scaling and duplicating at the sacrifice of quality and service. For example, and spoiler alert, we'll talk about this at the end of the webinar. It's not the primary purpose here, but we train coaches. We teach people how to do what we do, and quite successfully. Why? Because we've never tried to scale that. We don't try and figure out how we can possibly fit as many aspiring coaches into a room as possible and teach them the Habit Finder methods, give them access to a tool that any coach would die for in the Habit Finder profile, and then just try and maximize huge rooms. We call it cattle call certifications. We certify 5 to 8 people twice a year. That's it. Why? Because that's how far we can scale and still make sure that those 10 to 16 people are massively successful as coaches every year. That's how we do it. Depending on the parameters of your business and what you're looking to do, they may be totally different numbers, but the principle still applies. Never sacrifice scaling for service. You will pay those dues eventually. And often when they're paid later, the dividends have added up, and it's a really painful price to pay.
When we say service, the word that comes to my heart is results. You provide the service to create a result, because that's why someone's hired you as a coach. And then if you're going to scale, you scale without compromising that which creates results. And that's as big as you scale it. But the results are paramount. It has to be first.
Absolutely. We just had a quick question about scaling. What we're talking about is like scaling the size of your company. Like our team is 2 people. We need to get it to 10 people. We need to get it to 20 people. We're serving this many clients now. We need to be able to serve this many clients and this many clients. And that all becomes very systems driven, which are super important. Okay. Systems are super important, but the systems should be driven from doing the things that don't scale. Getting into the trenches with your clients and what you're providing and finding passion there and drive and inspired ideas to be able to act on, to be able to move the millimeters and then celebrate those things. And from that energy, that alchemy to be able to actually create the scale, meaning taking things up and up and up and up and bigger and broader and wider, to be able to do that efficiently. One of the keys to scaling is being able to put in a similar amount of effort to create a bigger result. That's really what we're talking about when it comes to scaling. But you want to make sure you don't detach yourself from the results. My dad was just saying, key indicator. And we see company after company, coach after coach, try to chase scaling and try to launch out of the starting blocks with their shoes tied, or actually pull off the scaling at the sacrifice of the results of their clients and at the masses that they're bringing in. Be okay with watching fewer and fewer results happen because the profits are going up. And that, we've been around long enough to know that that doesn't last. Okay, number 3. Number 3 is charge for the results you want your client to experience. And we've been at this for a long time. We've certified a lot of coaches, and we've mentored and coached a lot of other coaches who weren't becoming Mandino or Habit Finder coaches. And if there's something we find consistently across the board, the coaches that align with our principles, heart-driven, love-driven, passion-driven coaches, not fame and fortune and all those things, which we're not against by any means. Okay, we do well, and we're proud of that, and we're proud of how well our coaches do. But that's not the front seat driver. That's in the car. Okay, we want fortune, we want recognition just as much as any human being, but we don't allow that to be in the driver's seat. And one thing that we find with those who are very heart-driven, very service-driven, is oftentimes they can be very allergic to their own wallet. That it's, if I can just help people enough, then eventually they'll pay me, you know, or I really want to I want to come down to that person's level. And that can be a really tricky game. Because one thing that you'll want to start realizing if you're going to be a great coach is you're going to want to understand the lifelong impact of coaching and set your fees accordingly to not only the value you provide, but understanding the exponential value that you continue to provide in lifelong value. It's why for so long, a university education, a degree, has been able to get away with charging $50,000 to $150,000, and people just pay it because that's what you're supposed to do, because there is an inordinate amount of research about if you have a degree, you're going to make at least 1.6 or 2 million more dollars over the lifetime of your career than someone without a degree. So yeah, 50 grand, 100 grand makes total sense in that kind of return. And that kind of mentality, if you're a good coach, if you weren't credentials driven, you were actually results driven and connection driven, you weren't trying to scale just to make a bunch of money, you're really driven by the results of your clients. When you step in, your fees should reflect the lifelong impact that you can make. Don't step down your fee because you're worried that it offends your heart and that it's not fair to that person. Because if I've got an opportunity to make an impact on someone, okay, I want them to have a $15,000 result. So I'm going to charge them $15,000 to coach with me. Now, if I really want to coach with them and I really think I can help them and they can't pull off 15, every time I've made a compromise on the fee that I charge, there's been something I've had to make up for in their result. And that's what I want you to understand as a coach, is the price someone is paying is just as much, if not more, for them as it is for you. You can take two people with similar circumstances, similar habits, similar disciplines, and charge more. I'm not saying charge more for the sake of more, but say, rather 15 versus 10 or something like that. Or like our average coach charges anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 for an engagement with a client, okay? Or $5,000 to $10,000, depending on where they are, what their focus is, who their audience is. We don't have time to get into that today. But if they are an $8,000 coach and they go, but this person really needs a discount, I'm going to give it to them for $5,000. They're going to have $3,000 more of obstacles to overcome than the person who is really invested in themselves. Am I making sense, Dad?
Oh, Paul, this morning, I'm in a session with a husband and wife, business owners, successful business owners, teaching them how to dream, teaching them how to let go of the need to be right, how to handle even their children differently. And she said, Dave, I need to share something with you. And she started to cry. And she talked about how valuable this is and how it's changed everything in their life. Because our meeting today was about the contract they're signing to build a very expensive home, which they would have never done before. And they are prepared for it. And economically, it's a sound decision. But they would have never allowed themselves to dream like that. But it's what they've always wanted. And they've got the life to go with it. And they were saying, this is the best investment we've ever made. Well, I could tell you when we first started, they asked me the fee, and I told them, it was like, whoa, okay. And I just said, I just tell you, I'm going to work to make this the best thing you've ever done in your life. And she confirmed that this morning. It's when they say, I'd pay you twice that. He said, well, that's okay. I'll put your credit card number again? No, just kidding. But when people get that kind of value, lifelong benefit in relationships to their children, relationship to each other, in relationship to the dream creation, in relationship to the business, because the business is growing because of the principles they're learning and applying, what's the value of that? I can tell you that the fee for that coaching engagement is a drop in the bucket compared to the value that they've received. So it's also not just charging that because that's what you want them to experience. It's having confidence that what you're about to do for somebody is actually worth more than you're going to charge them, and you will charge them a fair and a good price for it. Not an hourly rate. We don't charge hourly rates as coaches in our organization. We charge engagements because I believe in taking on someone's life. This isn't a series of sessions. This is an engagement. We're going to take on your life. We're going to meet regularly. My clients have an SOS button. They text SOS, and I know they're in a crisis. We don't wait till the end of the next week or the week after to talk to them. Call them right then and see how they're doing. See if it can be handled right then quickly. If not, we'll schedule a time and go through it. We're taking on engagement. So as a coach, if you can think about, I'm not selling a series of sessions. I'm not doing a fee, in terms of time spent. I'm doing something to shift your life forever, and we're going to be engaged in taking on your life for this time certain period. It's just a more healthy way to approach it. And as you said, Paul, and it's true, when they've paid that kind of a fee, the chances of them showing up at that level of surrender and willingness to take on life is present, commensurate to the fee. So make sure that as a coach, you're not robbing yourself of those things. Confidence, capability, content, and results.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a dangerous trap to get into that. I can't afford that game. Because there's a lot more to that than just, it's not, I can't afford that. It could be a number of things. I don't trust you enough to figure out how to afford that. I'm not confident enough.
I've never paid that much before.
Yeah, I've never paid that much before. There's fear, there's nervousness, there's excitement, there's all kinds of things that come into play. And as soon as you start playing the discount and meet them at their insecurities level, then you're signing up for more and getting paid even less for what you've got to work with and what you've got to battle through. It's amazing how people will elevate themselves when there's more on the line within appropriate and fair and results-driven fees.
In all fairness to those who are watching, because we will talk about this a little bit later, that our tool that measures how someone thinks allows us to have a conversation right up front that goes so deep. And we know what needs to change. And they also know we know how to create the change. The chances of having that conversation go well in terms of an appropriate fee go up exponentially. So important that a coach has some tools to help create a connection with them before you're talking about fees. I think it's a critical piece because there are a lot of coaches out there that are just coaching. And what does that mean? Well, if they can feel it, experience it, the chances of wanting more of it and being willing to pay for it go up, as I said, exponentially.
So there's a really cool thing about coaching because it looks really sexy to be a coach. I can tell you it's awesome. It's amazing to be a coach. The freedom that we get to experience, being our own boss, being able to step into people's lives like we do, being able to travel all over the world, all these different things that you would hope could be achieved by coaching are absolutely true. But there's a couple realities to that. What it requires of you, most people aren't ready to pay. Most people aren't ready to end every night as we do and simply ask, did we live worthy to coach today? Really ponder that and consider what we're doing in our own lives, our own relationships, taking on our own challenges, not just for credibility, but for insight, for empathy, to understand where our clients are and what they're going through. And I remember my dad taught me an invaluable lesson that when you're going through really challenging times in life, which you do whether you're a coach or an employee or whatever, that to step back and go, who am I being prepared to serve? And as a coach, you've got a field of people that you get the opportunity to serve in that space. One of the three things I wanted to share, okay, and I hope you received some value from the three things we did share that you want to consider in terms of the mindset of building a successful coaching business. But one of the ones I wanted to share is make sure you've got a unique tool. I mean, Dad, can you imagine building the company we have today without the Habit Finder? Can you imagine trying to market our way into people's lives and brand our way into people's lives without being able to create an experience like that didn't require some salesy whatever kind of tactic, was just simply hey, you ever measured your thoughts before? Check this out. And then spend a little bit of time with them, and they immediately want to spend more. And as soon as they want to spend more, you find out if they're ready for coaching. And I mean, it's a simple, really simple system. But we've got coaches making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $700,000 a year that aren't pouring thousands of dollars into marketing, that aren't creating the most magnificent websites. They're creating service and results-driven experiences, and the calling card to that, the Habit Finder profile. That's why I didn't include that as one of the three, because one of the reasons, the only people that get access to the Habit Finder profile to use as a coaching tool are our coaches. It's not a universal tool that anybody can leverage. It's for our coaches. And so you get an opportunity to come into our coach family. You get to leverage that tool to go places, whether you are a business consultant. And quick spoiler alert, I invited a couple of our coaches on tonight because we wanted you to hear from more than just us. Okay, both of them have tremendous experience in corporate America and in independent sales and all kinds of different things. One of them, a very established, experienced business consultant, I'll allow him to tell you his story, who came in here just kind of looking for another, thing to put in his toolbox and ended up turning into so much more. Another who just barely finished our training. I wanted to hear from someone who's been with us for several years, someone who just finished our training, so you could hear a little bit about what it's like for those of you that are aspiring coaches. Now, before we shift gears into that, quick disclaimer. We work with a lot of companies, okay? And several of the companies we work with have, as a part of their companies, what they would call coaches. They're representatives of that organization that support people that go through that, whether it's in health or fitness or in other arenas, in finances and stuff like that. This is not an offering we're making to those coaches. Those coaches, more than likely, if you're one of those coaches, we're already plugged into your business and we're already offering incredible programs like those groups that we're doing and other things to provide tools and ways for you to be better as a coach where you currently are. We're talking to those independent coaches. We're talking to those that are building their own business with their own services in whatever industry it is. We've got coaches that work in addiction recovery. We've got coaches that work in relationships and marriages, work with only high-level executives, work in the fitness industry with people who open gyms, work with dentists, work with several different arenas. We've got some coaches that even work with teenagers and the youth. So, but the fact of the matter is, when you come into this coach family, we're going to make sure that you have everything you need to be successful, and not as a funnel. Okay. Not as it's heartbreaking. Every week we run into people who have wanted to be successful coaches, who have drained $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, even $100,000 in other organizations that we won't name. We're not here to play that game, because they got in for a penny and got in for a pound kind of thing. Oh, this is going to certify me. This is a credential. Oh, but now you need this master class to really explode. And you need this class on building your site and your branding to really explode, and this and that and whatever. By the time they get to us, they've been drained. Fortunately, they come in and make a fair investment in our program, and we're able to help them make that money back and then some, because we have a system that is designed to work, not designed to make money from the coach training. We want to make money from a long-term trickling relationship that is built on purely on the performance and success of you as a coach. So if any of you are on this call, please stick around for a couple of minutes to hear from these two coaches, to hear a little bit more deeply from my dad and I. For those of you that are aspiring independent coaches, meaning you're not part of one of those organizations, oftentimes in network marketing, where you're a coach there, because please still reach out to us if you're not already aware of ways that we can pour value into you in those organizations. But we're talking about people separate from that are building an independent consultancy or coaching practice, because although we only do 5 to 8 twice a year, getting the opportunity to be one of those is what we're here to talk about. And what's great is at 5 to 8, we only have a couple of spots left for our next one that starts in the latter towards the end of August. But we've got 1 or 2 spots there, and so no pressure's on us. We got the opportunity to come and hopefully share some value and insight with all of you. And then all we need is 1 or 2 people that are ready for this kind of foundation, this kind of traction, not just another program, another credential, another piece. What we do, and what I hope Amy and Cliff will touch on, because nobody really gets what I mean until they actually get behind the curtain and in here. But this is a family. Our coaches are a family. We mastermind every week together, not to commiserate, not to just, shoot the whatever, and no, to really build successful coaching practices. I don't know another company that has as many per capita successful coaches as we do, because it's a heavily diluted industry and oftentimes driven by a credential or branding or other ways to be able to get you to pay money, hoping that it will add to what you're doing. And oftentimes they're valuable, but it's very difficult to connect all those dots. And that's what we want to provide. We want to provide a foundation where you can create your brand, you can create and own your stories, your perspectives, but do so with decades of research and the way people actually think and what actually creates results. Okay, before I bring them on, anything you'd like to add, Dad?
You've raised it, and thank you again for being here tonight. We're pretty serious about this. As a company, we don't look at coach training as a revenue source, because we give far more in that training, including portals and websites and ongoing training for as long as you're with us. Our mission is your success. Our money comes when you get a client and you buy the materials to coach them. Nominal fee, $300. You keep the coaching fee. Our relationship with you is to provide you the training to deliver an incredible review of their thought processes and know how to deliver the practicum. And our coaches have other things they also do. Like one of these gentlemen is an incredible sales trainer, and he's got his own material that he also teaches in addition to the Mandino material. Our mission is to get you to a position where you can use this to change lives, and you change them. You get the client. Just honor the intellectual property by having a practicum. The material. It's a really simple model. I'm going to say it one more time. Our mission is your success. Our mission isn't to train a room full of coaches. We don't want a room full of coaches just for a room full of coaches. We want coaches who are actually changing lives, because every day I sit here in my office and I get to watch as I step out right outside here where they drop off all the practicums that are getting shipped to UPS on a daily basis. And I just look and I smile, because I think of all the lives that are about to be impacted, because those practicums are being sent out to a coach's client. It's so exciting. That's what we live for. So thank you.
Awesome. And in the spirit of not having you just hear from us the whole time, first person I'd like to bring up is Amy. Amy actually just finished her training. I'm going to bring you on as a panelist, Amy. It should pop your video on just one second. She was actually a referral to us from another Amy that's one of our coaches. Oh, we'll get it to landscape. There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
Hi.
Hey, Amy. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good.
Hello, hello, Dave. Hello, everybody that's on the line.
So you just finished training.
Mm-hmm.
You're already getting traction. What kind of things, if you were someone attending this webinar going, well, what's different about Habit Finder? I'm looking at all these different programs, or I've already established myself as a coach. What would you want to hear if you were in their position from your perspective?
That's a great question, Paul. I think, just to share a little bit about my background, I've been in sales for over 20 years. I've been in the corporate training side for 6 years. I've ran my own business as a trainer and a speaker. And I will say, I think what really differentiates this program from other programs I've coached under is the fact that it is structured. And it is a step-by-step. We're talking about 6 thought habits. It's easy to teach others the content. It's easy to follow the content. And what I think stands out the most, Paul, you brought it up a few minutes ago, is the integrity of this organization. And it's not about just signing up and let's get as many coaches on board as we can. What's really amazed me has been the support behind the scenes, as well as the opportunity that I get every day to live these principles. Every time I have a new client, every time I start a new coaching group, I'm in my second coaching group right now that I've started. I'm making money and I'm doing what I love. So it's like, if I add all those things together, doing what I love, making money while I'm doing it, reliving the principles on a daily basis, And last but not least, being able to do this anywhere. I travel all the time. I travel probably 75% of my life, and I can do this from anywhere. But back to your question, I think it's the fact that it is a very structured, we're going to follow these 6 steps. You're going to follow this manual, and we're going to take you through it. Whereas other programs I've coached under, it's just, I hate to say the word loosey-goosey. It's just, I'm your coach and let's work on what your problems are. And there's really not a step-by-step follow through, follow up mechanism in place that I found with this coaching organization.
A couple of questions, and if anybody else has any questions for Amy, please feel free to chat those in. But a couple of questions I would be wondering if I was in your position have been asked from people that have come on here. What has been your experience in terms of bringing you and your brand and your stories? Do you feel like you're locked into a program? Like you might as well just be an accountability partner taking them through a binder of information? What's your experience been like in terms of being able to be you?
I think probably what I love the most about this program, Paul, is the fact that I have to be me. I have to be my true, authentic self. I prepare my lesson with my coaching groups, but when I'm preparing my lesson, I'm also drawing upon being open and vulnerable about my life experiences and what I'm going through and how some of the principles we're talking about this week applied to a certain situation in my life. So what I really love about this also is the fact that we're creating a safe, non-threatening environment. We're creating a safe place where people can really be open, supported, and they can share whatever is on their mind. And that experience, I think, is where I really see the growth and the acceleration happen in people's results in their personal life, their business life, the challenges they're facing day in and day out. It's just all, to me, about being my true authentic self and nobody else beside that. And I've never found that in any other coaching program.
Last piece, because you've been in sales for a long time, Amy. Can you imagine, now that you're independent, you're building a successful coaching practice for yourself, can you imagine selling your coaching services independently, selling yourself without a tool like the Habit Finder?
I cannot. I mean, I was thinking about this today when I was thinking about being on this call today. And if you say the word sales trainer, if you say the word coach, I mean, there's a million sales trainers out there. There's a million coaches. But what makes this so special is one of the things I teach people that are getting into speaking or promoting themselves is that niches lead to riches. And you have to pick a lane and you have to have a very narrow, specific niche. If I can tell somebody I am a thought habit coach, it's completely different than being a life coach or being a coach with some other organization. It's a very, very unique and specific and defined pathway. And I think that's how I've been getting so much of my success is people hear thought habit and they're curious. They want to know more what this is about. So that's just been my experience of where I see that this is just such a tight niche. I love it.
And how nice is it when someone says, well, what is a thought habit coach? And you just need to go, well, go here and take this assessment and we'll talk.
Right, exactly. It's as simple as that.
Anything, and they're going to experience something they've never seen before.
Exactly.
Amy, I have a question for you.
Sure.
We've got a lot of people on the line that are coaches that are trying to figure out how to market themselves, etc. Would you share with them the difference between trying to market yourself and spending a few minutes in somebody's world with the measurements of their habits of thinking and the difference in that kind of a conversation?
The difference, Dave, I think, is that this program allows it to be all about the person in front of me. It's not about me as much as it's about the 100% focus on that person. And I think that what is so special and unique about that is where the more that we allow that environment of openness and transparency, and as we say, letting the walls down, the more people do self-exploration, the more that they do self-discovery, and then I guide them along the pathway of that. That's one of the key thoughts I have or answers I should say to that question.
We often say, as you know from the training, that we're going to go someplace with someone they probably have never been with another human being.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, I still remember my first call with my coach and some of the questions she asked me and some of the things I shared literally changed my life over the past 12 months. Her just being open and transparent and creating that safe environment to share and to do some self-discovery where, as I mentioned, I've I've been a coach, I've been a trainer, I've been a salesperson. I've been into self-development since I was 19, and I've never found a program like this that has had this much impact in my life for the better. And that's the main reason I decided to be a coach. I thought I got so much out of this myself in my life. I want to teach other people. I would be silly not to teach this to other people. And what would the world be like if we all went through the program? I think about that from time to time.
I was just going to ask you the question that Robert chatted in, but then he just said, thanks, you just answered it for me. He was wondering, what's the one thing this training's given you that's made the biggest difference in your success in assisting others? I was about to ask it, even if the answer was redundant, and they said, thanks, you answered it, so perfect.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I saw that check come up. I didn't want to break away from the talk here, but yes.
I have one last question.
Sure.
It's been really fun to see you on Tuesday morning in the mastermind group.
Thank you.
Having just finished your training, you're already selling coaching and making money, which is really fun. We spend the first 20, 30 minutes of every mastermind going through an assessment that somebody is brought to the table to say, help me better understand how to serve this client. What's that experience like for you as a new coach and working with your business?
What that has been like for me, Dave, is that it allows me to break away from, obviously you get a nice, wonderful manual that helps you understand every facet of the Thought Habit Finder, but being able to hear people like yourself and Paul take that and translate it into simple, easy to understand language, and hearing that again and again and again when I was going through my coaching certification got me to see, A, this is not difficult to understand, B, there's typical trends in what we see on these assessments, and C, it's so simple and it's so easy to communicate and to convey to the person on the other end of the table. So to me, that was actually one of the most valuable parts of the coach training that I went through.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fun to have you on board.
Thank you. I love it. I'm so happy. I found my place and my path, and I often talk to people that say, I don't know what I want to do with my life, my age, older, younger. And it's just wonderful to have that feeling that I found my niche. And everybody on this call, I hope this is your niche as well, but just trust the process. I trusted Paul when I signed up to go to the coaching program. I was going through a lot of tough life transitions, and I just trusted myself. I trusted that little voice that just said, this is the right thing at the right time, and just go for it. You've really got nothing to lose. This is the way that I looked at it.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your time.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Have a blessed evening.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. We had a question come through. I just want to make sure that everyone knows it's going to be addressed. We will cover the selection criteria in general. Okay. It's an interview process. Geographic territory availability is not an issue that we have with the selection that we use, the limited number, and also with technology. A lot of our coaches work across the country and even across the globe with a lot of their clients. So, and we'll also talk about the costs and other things for sure. So thank you for bringing that up. Before we get to a couple of those things at the end, I wanted to bring on another one of our coaches that have been with us for several years, who I can't tell my dad's a huge fan. I'm definitely a huge fan. And I remember the first time I talked to this person, and solid, successful consultant, very investigative, very, well, really careful to take this one step at a time. Once he came in here and sank his teeth into this, it's been really fun to watch. So I'll bring Cliff on. You can share a little bit about his background, and so you can get to know him a little bit and what this experience has been like for him. Cliff, you there?
I am here. I'm here. Hello,
there
Joe.
He is.
How are you? Sorry about that. I popped in. It was weird.
Give us a quick little intro for everybody here so they get a little bit of a feel for where you're come from.
I came from the corporate world, mostly sales and sales management with 3 large Fortune 500 companies. I started consulting about 10 years ago to those corporations, the industry that I was in. And I've always been involved with Mandino for about 25 years. I read the book about 25 years ago, and it really impacted my selling career and my management career. So about 3 years ago, I got connected with the Mandino Institute and with the Blanchards, and I can tell you it was the best move that I've ever made. It was incredible. The joining of this program in my consulting work in corporations has been, I don't have any other word for it, but thrilling. It's just been exhilarating. And the ability to have a tool is this in your bag, and it literally gives me a 6 months to 8 months start with a client. What would take me that long to get a starting place to start coaching somebody in a corporation. Hence, we get the results so much quicker. And corporations are all about results. It's all about results. And it's been absolutely amazing, the fact that the corporations that I'm doing work for do not ask me for a report on the coaching, which, what does that tell you? It's the results. They're getting the results from their people. They don't ask for any copies of anything that I'm doing with them. And they just keep giving me more and more clients and expanding the opportunities. So that's my background.
Very cool.
Cliff, I have to ask you, take us back to a typical assessment debrief, and you're walking through someone's habits of thinking and sharing with them what you're finding. What's the most common responses that you get from those people?
They all say the same thing. Almost everybody says, how does that work? How could it possibly work? How could it, me ranking those statements in such a short time, how could it work? And Dave, to be honest with you, if you're in sales in corporations in America, you take hundreds of assessments. Mm-hmm. They're out there, and I did too. And to be honest with you, they always left me short. I mean, they all were good. They all pointed out some things, but mostly personality traits and customer traits and all sorts of things like that. But there is nothing that even comes close to this. Nothing. And it's super quick, and it's all out on the table. Nothing's hidden. You give them the results. You give them the results before I even talk to them, before I even get a chance to debrief them. And then what happens is they look at that, and everybody does the same thing. I'm amazed. How does it do that? And then we can talk a little bit about the math behind it, of course, and the genius behind the program. But yeah, that's what it happens every day. It happened to me today. It happened to me this morning in a debrief session. And
super fun to have someone going, if you know that from that tool, I'd love to see what we can do together in coaching or consulting or whatever the case is. A question I'd love to ask as we're getting towards the end of our time here is, Cliff, you're our Italian brother, and family is super important. Okay, it's part of your culture. It's a big part of ours. I talk to people that want to become a part of our organization as their own independent coach. You have your own brand, your own company. You do your own thing, and you keep the lion's share and then some of what you get to do. We just have little arrangements moving on to make sure that we respect the intellectual property. But something I tell every prospective coach that wants to come into this program is, this is a family. And I know they don't get what I mean, but what would you share with them to take that understanding a little bit further of what my dad and I talk about in terms of our coach family?
It's funny. That's really what I wrote down. What I've learned by being with you, which you said, Paul, I was skeptical. I mean, I had been doing this, and I wasn't sure, what value it would bring to my consulting. But it's made all the difference in the world. It truly is a family. I mean, I wish I could bring you on to a mastermind section and see how everybody is on there is helping each other grow their business. Yet we're all doing completely different things with it. The program is so flexible to a niche, to any niche that you want to bring it to. And you guys are willing to work in those niches. As long as we're using the program, you guys are interested in and work with us to understand how to fit the program in our niche. And we're all in completely different niches, and we're constantly helping each other and Dave comes on and goes really deep into helping us understand how to use the assessment to the profile to make it a better experience for our clients. So it is a family. It's amazing. And if you want support for a ridiculous sum for the rights to do the program, I mean, $300 a client it's amazing what you get, and you'll make that money back on the coaching, paying for the coaching immediately. It will take nothing.
Yep. So, again, remembering our average coach is charging $5,000 to $10,000 an engagement. On the low end, charge $5,000 for a coaching engagement. You send us $300. I don't know who's not game for that kind of equation all day long. And we're fulfilling the materials as well. We're sending them out to your clients, the foundational materials that you use in addition to all the things you already bring to the table as a successful sales consultant. And then we get to maintain, an integrous relationship moving forward. We get to continue to show up for you the way that we do. Even that model isn't designed to try and milk as much out of our coaches as we can. We definitely feel confident about being able to deliver a lot more than we ask our coaches to invest money-wise. But what we do ask is what you mentioned: come into the family and contribute. We all make each other better, for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cliff, thank you so much for being here, for your time, your energy, for contributions, all the fun we've had together. We not only do masterminds every week, but twice a year we get together for a coach retreat where we invite all of our coaches to come here. We shuttle them all up to our private retreat in Bear Lake. And in the fall, we do boating and riding the mountains. In the early spring, late winter, we do snowmobiling. We bring in guests that people typically pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to hear from. We bring them in on our dime to come and contribute in addition to what we can provide and what we train each other on. I mean, just really, you said it, the support is key. Because if we can find the right people that are ready for this, that are fit for us, and save them from spending $50,000 on another program that didn't solve any of their problems, didn't give them the real family, the real support, or someone who has done that and show them how to still be able to capitalize on that by connecting the dots with what we do, that's what we desire. We want to find people that are here for the right reasons. So thank you, Cliff. Any last things you'd like to share with someone who might have been in your position 3 years ago watching something like this?
Just don't hesitate. If you are looking for an organization that can give you unbelievable support to grow your business and give you freedom to go out there and make it happen, we undoubtedly have the best job in the world. We get to change people's lives for the good, and it's incredibly rewarding. And this is an incredible organization and tool.
Thank you.
Worthy income generating vehicle to create worthy dreams. Love that. Thank you, Cliff. Appreciate your time here. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Really quick, I want to cover just a couple of things, and then any questions you've got, please feel free to send those in. So real quick, in terms of, want to come back to Robert's question. So selection criteria is an interview process. Okay, I'm going to put this in the chat to everybody really quick. Anyone that would like to explore this a little bit further, you meet with our team first, and they're going to take you through an interview process, and they're also going to have you take the Habit Finder if you haven't taken it before, and review some of those things with you so you can experience that a little bit for yourself. And depending on how that conversation goes, then they're going to recommend that you visit with either me or my dad, because we actually handle the certification of our coaches personally. Like we said, we're not going to scale beyond where we know we're confident we can create the success and the results for those coaches' clients as well. So we handle that personally. So we want to interview you personally, and that's the selection process. We're looking more for where your come from is, what drives you, what the reason you want to make an impact on other people, who the people are you can see yourself making an impact on. Don't worry about it being the right or wrong answers. Don't worry about being all put together. There's a lot that we'll provide for you if you come from the right place with the right heart. But also we want to make sure you've got the right standard set of skills, that we're setting you up for success, not just asking you for an investment. Now, people ask what the investment is. As we mentioned, there's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 programs out there, continuing to upsell and upsell and upsell. Some of the entry points are where ours at, but that's all you'll ever invest is $10,000 for our coach certification. There's no annual dues. There's no recertification fees. Just an ongoing relationship that when you get a paying client that conservatively is going to be in the $4 to $5 to $6 to even $10,000, $15,000 range, you pay $300 for us to send their foundational materials to them. And then you work with them on whatever you wanted to focus on with these materials or just on these materials. We've been doing that successfully for 20 years in a lot of different industries. You pay us $300 for that. We send it out and fulfill that. But it isn't until after you've got a client that's committed to work with you. We're going to help you with contracts. We'll help you with social media. We'll help you with branding. We'll help you with all those things because we've got a family that has invested an incredible amount of time and money, and especially we have over the last 20 years, and we want to pour that into you to help you be successful because we know the Habit Finder tool and the Habit Finder principles married with your stories, your come from, your unique gifts and abilities can bless so many lives. So we're looking for a couple of people that can do that. They're looking to take that on. In terms of territory, I addressed that briefly before. Our coaches work all over the country, regardless of where they live. And there is more than enough to go around, especially right now. I mean, there are organizations out there with 10,000 coaches that still have more than enough to go around. We're working with a really concentrated group of 70 to 80 coaches. So looking to add a couple in August if that is for you. Robert also asked, is this offered to a select subset of who you coach or to anybody? No, you don't have to be a client of ours to get in. In fact, we shifted the program just a little bit a couple of years ago because you used to have to be a client first to then get into the coaching program. It was just a little bit more expensive at that point. Then we realized with technology, we didn't have to bring people in person for a weekend. And with what we had learned about our coaches and what was really making them successful, we could create a training program that takes 15 weeks, which answers the next question that I saw come through. It takes about 15 weeks to get through. And it's all through Zoom. It's all recorded. We create a private Facebook group to interact in between weekly sessions and where we put the recordings because we know our coaches that we train are busy professionals oftentimes. So we want to make it accessible. So if you miss a session, you watch the recording, follow up with us afterwards. We want to maximize convenience, but it still takes commitment and drive to be able to do this. And at the end of those 15 weeks, our goal is to make sure you've got a paid client or two or several. In fact, Amy started to get some of her first few group people in as paid clients before she finished the 15-week training. It's why we spend the first 2 weeks of the training just teaching you how to use the Habit Finder tool, because then you're off to the races. Because then we spend the next 12 or 13 weeks teaching you how to coach this material, how to fit it into your stories, your gifts, your niche. And while we're teaching you that, you're inviting people to take the assessment through your own link, your own unique link to be able to do that. And that's what feeds your coaching business. I've had we've had coaches get, we had one coach get, what was it, $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000 clients the third week of training. So he was 2 weeks ahead of them in the material, but he already brought a lot of ability to the table. It wasn't like he was bamboozling people. He had a lot to bring to the table. We gave him some nuance with these foundational principles to do that. So that's one of our goals is we want you to be able to get an ROI before you finish the training but be on a trajectory to create success because that means you're changing people's lives. So
Can I add to this, Paul?
Please.
I'm thinking about Deb Crow up in Canada, who had a women's conference coming up, and the training to do the assessment, the 2 weeks for the assessment training, three times a week for 2 weeks to get trained on the technical parts of the assessment. She finished the training the Thursday before the Saturday of the event, and she offered assessment debriefs, free debriefs to the participants, and ended up with several coaching clients as a result. And she was only about a week and a half or 2 weeks ahead of her coaches. So she was training on habit number one and then coaching habit one, training habit number two, coaching habit number two. And frankly, we like that approach because when you finish the assessment training, the very first thing you want to be doing is a lot of assessment debriefs. And she just happened to have a vehicle that allowed her to do like 35 of them over the course of 2 or 3 weeks and got clients from those things. So we want you in the process as quickly as you can. And the more assessment debriefs you do, the better you get, the more profound the experience, the more likely someone is going to be to hire you. Paul, you've got stats on that.
Mm-hmm.
What are they?
So right now, currently for 2019, Our coaches that are getting paid clients averaged a 24.9% conversion on just assessments. So meaning every 4 assessments that someone takes, that's an invitation to just have someone take a habit finder, one of those 4 people become a paid client. So that's what the current conversion is on those, on our coaches. So Cliff, who is just on here, has an 84% conversion. So, and then we have some coaches that have used their habit finder in, like, we have a college professor who's a habit finder coach. So he likes to have his class take it so they can teach him a little bit about that, not to actually get clients as college students, but then he gets a couple of clients on the side. So his conversion is much lower because he's bringing in 200, 300 assessments every semester, but then he's got a smaller set of assessments. So even across the board with those numbers, it's still a pretty significant conversion, because that's what feeds your business. Just, you don't have to figure out the branding, the website, the how to present yourself and all that stuff. No, just, we're going to teach you all of that to be enough that you just need to invite them to take it. You give them that experience, as Cliff was saying, and everything changes after that, which rolls right into another question asked: are we provided leads for new businesses, or are we solely responsible for building your own business? You are an independent habit finder or Mandino coach, so you create your own leads, but there is no shortage of teaching you how. I don't have any coaches that are engaged in our system that are saying, I just don't know where to find clients. It's just a matter of, I need to make sure I create the time to be able to continue to invite them to take the assessment and to be able to follow up with them. You know, it's super fun to have coaches saying, man, I've got a waiting list for my clients. Now that can feel a little bit like what we call the avocado tree principle. Any of you ever in California around avocado trees or anywhere else, when you stand under an avocado tree, you don't see any avocados because they're the exact same shade as the leaves. But as soon as you see one, you see all of them. And if we can just teach you how to see that first client, all of a sudden you see all of them. And that rarely becomes a problem for any of our coaches. The only time leads become a problem is when they've had so many clients, they haven't been putting efforts into inviting people to take the Habit Finder assessment. And just picking back up on that is a beautiful thing. With that said, we occasionally contract with our independent coaches to handle clients that as a corporation we can't handle in-house. And we certainly hope to grow that, but we don't want to bring anyone in under the pretenses that they could rely on those leads to be, you know, to make their market and their income. So, and how do we teach to market it also to acquire clients? Social media, networking, all kinds of things. It's not a matter of anything revolutionary. It's a matter of bringing very simple principles to the process of how you connect with people at chambers, how you connect with people in networking groups, changing the dynamics in terms of how you show up on social media, all those different things. Marketing campaigns, we can teach you plenty of things that would be very expensive mistakes that we've learned over the years. All of those things to start where you are. It's usually the most common question we get asked: how do I create leads? How do I market? But it's, by the time you get into this, it requires the least amount of energy. The most energy is put into how you show up for the people that are taking the assessment to create a high conversion rate, to be able to charge high value coaching so that you don't need an inordinate amount of clients to be able to make a significant income. And we've got coaches that have been doing this for a year. We've got coaches that have been doing this for 15 years with us. And all of them are available to you to mentor with you, to work with you if you're showing up and doing the work. And it's a system that works when you do. It's cliche, but it's something we are turbo confident in. So great questions.
And Paul, we say, you know, you experience the assessment. For anybody here who's interested in having this conversation, you'll take the Habit Finder assessment and meet with a Habit Finder specialist. So you'll get to experience the Habit Finder as part of your inquiry of whether this is for you or not. So you get to have your own experience.
Awesome. I think we're about there. So I'm going to put this link out just one more time so everybody's got it. Just go to habitfinder.com/habitfindercoach, all one word. habitfinder.com/habitfindercoach. Simple form there that's just going to ask for basic contact information. If you're on here and you know someone that would be great for this, then send them that link or talk to them, and you can go to that link and put their information in there, and we'll reach out to them as well. Please don't put anyone's information in there that you haven't talked to. We don't want to reach out to someone blindly. Okay. But, and that's where it's going to start with what it would be to experience the Habit Finder, to be interviewed by our team, and then we'll take it one step at a time from there. We're looking to fill a class that starts the 3rd week of August, I believe, to start teaching you how to use the Habit Finder in those first 2 weeks and get you off and running well before the end of the year. So what would it cost as a couple? Good question. It's been a while since we've taken a couple in. Yeah, Robert, go ahead and fill out the form, and let's talk more offline about that. And we'll find something. If
we have typically in the past offered a discount for the second person.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I didn't want to put it out there without consulting here, because we don't have an official thing in place, because it doesn't happen very often. But certainly, yeah, it's not just going to be 2 times the cost, because oftentimes the 2 of you are working in tandem, and so there's a lot of benefits to that for you and for us. So being able to do that, we'll totally work with you on that. So thanks for your questions. If you have any additional ones, fill out the form, talk with the team, or you can email support@habitfinder.com if you're allergic to forms, okay? Whatever it is. But appreciate your time tonight. Hope we provided some great value for you up front. And so that regardless of what you do, whether you work with one of those companies that we already coach and mentor into, so this isn't necessarily the program we're offering to you. We've got other programs that we provide to you so that you can be a great coach in the organization you're already in, as well as those that are looking to take your existing coaching business, your own business, not a business you represent, to another level, or those of you that have always thought about, I can really impact people. People open up to me. I'm always being asked for advice. If you're here and watching, we'd love to talk with you and explore how this can change everything for you and all the people you're going to be able to make an impact on because of it. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Take care.